Hello everybody and welcome back to the podcast channel. Y'all, we are over here in the podcast channel today because we're going to be doing some case updates, that type thing. If you want my longer form content, make sure to check out the description below because it has links to my other main channel where I do major deep dives, that type thing. The way it works over here is I will typically review an article or a headline, or even we go live sometimes. Specifically for this video, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be putting up some screenshots of headlines and that type thing to be reviewing this case. A lot of people have been asking me my opinion, my thoughts, and that type thing in this case, and I have not done a huge deep dive until today. When I say that, what I've done is I was like reading a bunch of different articles on it, and this one is a head scratcher to me. Now, obviously, a lot has unfolded with this, and sadly, no justice has come to the surface yet. It's a very fresh case, and so there's that. Now, what we're going to do specifically with this video that's a little bit different is we're going to start with a recent update. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading a passage from a statement from the sheriff's office about the case that's come out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to read basically some headlines and go backwards in the case. Usually what I do is I like read the articles and then give my opinion at the end. Well, I'm going to kind of read an article, then give my opinion, read an article, give my opinion, because there's just so many of them to do. So this might be a little bit of a longer video than you're used to on this channel. But there's been just so much has happened with it, and again, going into this, it's just like, oh my gosh, there's just like, where do you even begin? So I figured doing some headlines and bullet points, that type thing, is what we'll do. So let's go ahead and jump on in, and we'll start with the sheriff's announcement. Okay, now as you can see, this is the office of the sheriff, Habersham County, Georgia, Sheriff Joey Terrell. This was on for immediate release on September 30th, 2022. Now I'm not going to read this entire thing because the first two passages are essentially like just going over some basic stuff. It's these last couple of passages that I want to focus on here to kind of catch us up to speed and that type thing. So, as released earlier, investigators did obtain footage that shows the victim, Debbie Collier, entering the store on September 10th at 2:55 p.m. and remaining there until 3:09 p.m. in the video. The victim appears to be calm and not in fear of anything. All video footage obtained from the store and surrounding businesses reflect that the victim was alone in the van at the time she visited the store. A review of the store receipt and the video footage from the store security cameras, investigators confirmed that they were further able to determine that the victim purchased a rain poncho, refillable torch lighter, a 2-roll pack of paper towels, a 7.5 by 9.5 OBD tarp, and a reusable tote bag. This was confirmed by obtaining a copy of the store receipt and a copy of the video footage from the store security cameras. More recently, the security video of the neighboring businesses shows the victim coming out of the Family Dollar store at 3:09 p.m. and sitting in her vehicle for 10 minutes before departing the parking lot. At 3:19 p.m., the victim leaves and heads south on Highway 15. This information allows investigators to narrow the time of death to a window beginning at 3:19 p.m. on Saturday, September 10th, to the discovery of the body on Sunday, September 11th at 12:44 p.m. In an attempt to address the suggestions of this being taking her own life or the work of a serial killer, we want to reiterate that there is nothing that has come from this investigation thus far that would support the theory that this was self-inflicted or that it was a random act of violence. At this time, the investigation is leading us to the proposition that Ms. Collier's death was personal and targeted. Okay, so let's talk about this one real quick. So as we know, Debbie Collier, she's obviously gone missing. Her body was found under very bizarre circumstances, okay? Very bizarre. And we're going to unfold those as we go about through these headlines. We're not going to try and just sum it all right here, but we're going to start with this right here, and you'll see as we go. Okay, so this last statement that it was personal and targeted, for me, this is another way of saying, number one, obviously what they're saying. This is not that she has done something to herself. This is some random act or whatever. Personal and targeted is like, this is somebody that knew her. This is someone that had a personal, like this was personal, what it said. Now, also another thing with the whole camera footage and all this is that we've learned is that these items that she bought were items found at the crime scene. So it's like she was buying the items used during the commission of the crime. Now, another thing that was major is that, because at first when this case came out, I was like, oh, this is a kidnapping of some sort, whatever, right? And surely maybe somebody was in the car or something's going on. Well, she's like, nothing's going on. She's at the car. She's in the car. She's like in the parking lot. Like there doesn't seem to be anything that's, scaring her or whatever. So this part is very bizarre to me. But again, I think it's very telling that the police are even going public with saying it's personal and targeted. There's a reason why they're putting this in the statement, right? Not only to get rid of speculation and all that, but they're wanting someone to know the pressure's on. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead to the next headline. Now, what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to start from like the beginning. What I've done is I've gone to Daily Mail. Now, a lot of times I don't consider them to be like, oh, this major. They're more tabloid to me, if you will. But what I've also found is that they do a very good job at saying, here's the headline, here's some bullet points, and you can verify a lot of this information via other news resources. So I wanted to use their headlines with the bullet points because it's just very concise and it moves the story along, if you will. The story of what happened to Debbie, at least what we know so far. So I'm going to put these up here. I'll read one and we'll talk about it. Okay, so the first one is neighbor of Georgia mom found dead in a ditch while naked and clinging to a tree, claims they heard screaming and fighting from her house the night before she went missing. So this does go into some of the backstory. Debbie, 59, was found in a small steep-sided ravine on September 11th near a wooded area in Tallulah Falls, Georgia. Husband, Stephen, last saw his wife at 9 p.m. the night before she vanished, as he headed to sleep in his own bedroom at their home in Athens, Georgia. Neighbors say commotion was heard at the home the night before she disappeared. Other residents have told how the family would keep to themselves even during community events. The report seen by DailyMail.com read he clarified that he and Deborah sleep in separate bedrooms due to his snoring. He did not recall seeing his wife on the morning she disappeared, but said he saw her rented SUV parked in the driveway and assumed she was inside asleep. Okay, so now here's this one. Now, I'll just say this. Have I done some deep major dive on any of the players in this, like the husband or the daughter's husband, all this? No, not much more than some articles that I've read, so there's that. Now, oftentimes when these cases happen, immediately it's the spouse did it or this did it, and oftentimes it ends up being them. But because this is an active case, this is all allegedly, I don't know. We're getting ready to read an article where people say there's no way he would do this, so we don't know. I think it's very interesting that a neighborhood arguing and that kind of a thing. Nothing in this article strikes me out of the ordinary except for that so far. People sleep in separate beds all the time. This is not an abnormal thing, right? If you've been married for a very long time and snoring all that, this is totally normal, right? Couples do argue. Now, the screaming and yelling and all this kind of stuff, couples do this. This doesn't lead to what took place, right? Now, where it will become interesting is when we look at, as a whole, all that she is surrounded with, because there is a lot of red flag stuff going on. Them having a screaming match the night before she goes missing is a red flag, right? So point blank period, that's a red flag, but not one that necessarily is like, oh my God, we got a conviction, you know what I'm saying? So just keep that in mind as we read through there, because there's other red flags from other people that come up, in my opinion. So let's move on to the next ones. Exclusive. She was a beautiful person. I loved her. Shaken husband of Georgia mom Debbie Collier, whose body was found naked and burned in the woods, tears up as neighbor says he would bet his life he had nothing to do with what happened to her. So Steve Collier told Daily Mail in an exclusive interview that his wife Debbie was a beautiful person, that he loved her. Debbie Collier's body was found naked and charred in the woods 60 miles from her home on September 11th. Collier's neighbor said he would bet his life that the 67-year-old had nothing to do with the mysterious killing. I know suspicion can fall on the family of murder victims, the neighbor said. Collier appeared frail and had difficulty walking when we caught up with him. The murderer would have had to drag or carry Debbie's body a quarter of a mile. Police say there's no indication that Debbie was kidnapped and are analyzing family members' phones, routine practice in such murders. Okay, now I will agree with this. There is a little bit of this where it's like where she was found is super tricky. So to sit here and like look at certain family members and whatnot, like him, for example, it's kind of like, okay, how could this have happened? At the end of this video, we'll talk about kind of like some of my all over opinions about maybe what could have taken place. But again, it doesn't really point the finger at any particular person at this point. Maybe just some general theories, but we'll get to that. And honestly, I really don't even have a hardcore theory formed up because it's so bizarre so far. Now, the neighbor sitting here saying, I don't think he could have done this. Again, that doesn't really hold water with me. I think people can know people, but we've seen so many times in these cases, right, wrong, or indifferent, you know, that doesn't hold much water, right? Now, I'm not saying that that makes me think that he's guilty of anything or not, but I'm just saying I basically remain neutral in the husband right now with the information that I have. So just because the neighbor's saying this doesn't make me feel one way or the other, right? It is what it is at this point. And yes, the cops are going to always start with the people closest to the victim and move outward. Again, I go back to the cops saying that this was personal and targeted isn't looking good for the inward then outward thing, because they're saying so far, yeah, the random outward stuff, it ain't adding up to that. Now let's go to the next article. Okay, cops investigate unfired round discovered close to where Debbie Collier was found murdered and burned. Investigators retrieved an unfired round just 30 yards from where Debbie's body was located. The real estate office manager disappeared on September 10th after shopping at a Family Dollar store and sending an ominous message to her daughter. Police found her body naked and charred in the woods. The unfired round can be used as evidence that Collier was kidnapped and murdered after police previously ruled out that she took her life. Now remember, I'm kind of doing, these articles came out at different times and whatnot, so you can see the trajectory of the different theories that came up and whatnot. So in here, you're seeing this article, it could be used as evidence that she was, you know, that type thing. So clearly if the cops are saying at this point, look, you know, we've ruled out kidnapping and her taking her own life, like we're looking at something more personal targeted, then clearly that's not the case, right, at this point. But again, look at all the bizarre little things that took place. Now, as this mentioned, you know, she sent that very weird thing to her daughter, that text message of Venmo, number one, with like $2,400 saying, they're not going to let me go. There's a key to the house, you know, wherever. I love you. Very ominous, very weird message that she left there. And that's just another thing that adds to the layer. Now, we'll also get into this in a little bit where the cops have not confirmed at the time of this recording that that came from her phone, which could be a major thing in this case. Okay, so the next one, Georgia mom found burned in a ditch and clinging to a tree, posted a horrific picture with a black eye on Facebook after she face planted onto a sidewalk. Newly revealed pictures show Debbie posted pictures of a grisly injury to Facebook in 2020 of December 2020 after she face planted on the concrete sidewalk. Collier, 59, was found, you know, her life was taken 60 miles from the home after her husband reported her missing from their home in Athens, Georgia. She was found clinging to a tree by sheriff's deputies a day after vanishing from the modest home she shared with her husband. She was found naked and burned in some places. They found the red tote bag and a burned tarp nearby. The police did confirm they had no record of any domestic calls involving Collier or her husband. Now, this one's interesting because we're going to see some evidence here in a little bit. And when I say evidence, I mean articles, not really evidence, of some situations like with maybe their daughter, her daughter's ex, or, you know, her daughter's man. I'm not sure what the status of them right now today is. But also this is another sign of there's no domestic stuff going on with them. Now, this doesn't mean that there's not, but there's no evidence of this with the husband and whatnot. So this to me is a good sign in regards to the husband, right? But again, that doesn't mean that wasn't going on. And the fact that she posted this picture on Facebook, I'm not going to post it up here because it might be like, you know, kind of bother a lot of people because it's rough, y'all. I mean, it's like bad looking. Again, I ain't no doctor. I can't sit here and say, oh, that doesn't look like a, you know, whatever. To me, I was like, that's a really bad fall on a sidewalk on your face. Like maybe her hands were full and she couldn't guard it, but it looked really, really bad. So again, it's just kind of one of those things where when you have to start dissecting every little last detail about someone's life, this is one of those things where you're like, like, is there something else there, you know, or is it simply what it is, a really bad fall on the sidewalk? So let's look at the next headline. I will hurt them. MMA fighter threatened murder victim Debbie Collier's entire family in chilling note last year after he was accused of beating up her daughter, who is his girlfriend. As it's revealed, he was jailed last week for probation breach. Collier, 59, was found dead, 60 miles from Athens, Georgia. No one has been arrested for her killing, and there's no indication that either Burden or her boyfriend, they're talking about the daughter, and the boyfriend's name is Andrew Geigrich, are considered suspects. So remember, there is no indication that they are considered suspects. This was on September 24th. However, a handwritten message contained in police evidence files shows what is believed to be Geigrich. If you or your family ever come near me again, I will hurt them, he allegedly wrote in a note to Bearden in 2021. He reiterates, have a nice life, you lying ass, you know what, don't ever contact me again. The note was taken in May 2021 when police intervened in the couple's relationship after Amanda claimed Andrew had broken in to beat her. Now we're going to see in another article where she got in trouble for that because she was lying about it. So again, this could be completely separate stuff here, right? And he could just be spouting off or whatever. But once you put someone and their family, a victim's family, under the microscope like this and start really going through, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, unfortunately, if they are innocent of anything, it's just you have to look at every last little detail, and this is what the cops are doing. Hopefully, if they're doing their jobs thoroughly, right, they're going to start from the inside and work their way out. And again, I think it's very telling that they're saying that what happened to her was very personal and it was targeted. So let's go on to the next article. Daughter of murdered Georgia mom Debbie Collier has a history of lying to police and violent spats with MMA fighter boyfriend. Cops rule out kidnapping and her mother's death, despite cryptic Venmo payment claiming she's been taken captive. Debbie Collier's daughter, Amanda Bearden, 36, has a history of lying to police. In May last year, she told cops her MMA fighter boyfriend, Andrew, broke into her home and beat her. He in fact had access to the home and had been living with her there. Cops charged her with falsely reporting burglary and arrested Andrew for battery. The pair are back living together in Athens, Georgia, and were spotted by Daily Mail this week. Andrew complained that they had been interrogated by police, and they go into Debbie being found. Amanda told police her mom sent her $2,385 on Venmo the day before with a cryptic note that suggested she'd been kidnapped. They have ruled out kidnapping and that she took her own life. Okay, so again, just more of this type of stuff where they're really analyzing all the different actions. No, it does not look good that, she lied about this. She got charged for that. It sounds like they had a spat. Does this mean that they specifically did something? No. What I do think is interesting is because the note, the cryptic note with the Venmo of they're not going to let me go, there's a key to the house, I love you, it was very weird. To me, a lot's going to take place when they can determine and confirm that that was sent from her mother's phone and get proof of that. Because if they can't, or if it comes up where that did not come from her mother's phone or whatever it was that sent it, right? If they sit here and say, well, why did that message generate from this computer over here? It's going to blow this case out of the water, right? Because we'll most likely find out who was doing what. If it comes back that there is a way to say, yep, 100% this came from the mother's phone, okay. Because here's the thing. If somebody was with the mother, which I do think they were with whatever they did to her, they could have forced her to send that message. You know what I'm saying? But we'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's go to the other article. Newly released video shows murdered Georgia mom Debbie Collier calmly shopping for a tarp and poncho in Family Dollar store after she disappeared in less than 24 hours before her naked and burned body was found in a ravine. Debbie Collier was caught on camera shopping at the Family Dollar store in Clayton, Georgia less than 24 hours before she was discovered. She'd gone missing from her home earlier in the day. Collier bought items including a rain poncho, paper towels, refillable torch lighter, a tarp, and a red tote bag. The footage shows she was alone in her rented van when she arrived at the store. They said she appeared calm and not in fear of anything as she shopped in the store 12 miles north of where her body was discovered. No one has yet been charged, but investigators say no one has been ruled out either. Okay, so that's all the little articles that I have there. So let's start with that most recent one here. Again, with this one, all the items that she bought, I mean, the fact that they were then discovered at the crime scene. This is very bizarre. She didn't seem to be scared, frightened, there against her own will. So my question is, why was she buying the items? Was she doing this under some form of duress? Was she buying them under the assumption that they might be for someone else? If that makes sense, meaning like, oh, I'm going to go pick these up for blank, or they just happen to be in her car at the time. and therefore they were utilized. Like it's just a coincidence with whatever happened to her. Okay, so as you can start painting all this together, it adds up to a bunch of nothing, because this is so bizarre, right? The fact that she's going into the thing doesn't seem to be under duress. Now, the daughter will say in articles and whatnot, my mother has never had any bouts of wanting to unalive herself. My mother has not, shown any signs of mental issues going on. So, there's that. The evidence, and by evidence I mean words from everybody's mouths and whatnot, is that this is just completely bizarre behavior for her, right? This is not normal, meaning to disappear and do this and do that. So here's some of my thoughts about what possibly could be going on. First of all, maybe there was something that took place, maybe some kind of I don't know. It's something like a mental breakdown, something, and she ran into the wrong people. Okay, this is one option. I do not think that happened, because at this point the cops are saying this isn't some random thing. This isn't some kidnapping. This was personal and targeted, right? So clearly they're going to be looking at who does Debbie know. Now, there was this whole thing going on, right? Which I think that this could add up to something of, she had gotten into the car wreck, which is why she was driving the rented vehicle. And she had allegedly gotten in this car wreck with somebody who was on probation and was like, look, don't turn us in, don't do this, I'm going to get in trouble, basically, right? So you have to sit there and then think, okay, did that scenario come into play? Because if something did come from that, and say she sent someone off and maybe someone retaliated against her, the viciousness of it could definitely lend itself to that. Now, again, when you start looking at the family members, they're going to always look at that, right? It's what they do in these cases. And at this point in time, when I sit here and hear the stuff about the family, and again, mostly judging from what I've heard in the article and whatnot, there's no major, huge red flags of okay, all this has been going on, years of this and years of that. Yes, the fall is sus. Yes, the yelling match the night before is weird. And here's my thing. If they came back tomorrow and said, we found proof it was one of the family members, would I be shocked? No. If you follow true crime, you already know. We see this happen all the time, sadly. If they come back tomorrow and said, you know what, this whole wreck thing, this actually did pan out, and a family member of this person came back and found her and did blank. Got it. Makes sense. Bizarre, completely bizarre, doesn't really fall in line with the random act, because that would be a random act to me. But again, it might not be so random if she had this run-in with somebody. So there's that. So obviously my heart goes out. This is a horrible way to leave, y'all. Horrible way to leave this earth. Whatever happened to her, she didn't deserve it, okay? Just the way she was found, it's just absolutely terrible. My heart aches for her family. I hope that, when the police do their job, they can clear them and that it wasn't the family, because we hear about that so often. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. Not that it makes it any better if it was some other situation, right? Because at the end of the day, Debbie lost her life. That's unfortunately the center of it. That's a fact. We know this. This is one of those cases where there's so many weird little things that just don't add up. Her behavior, the weird Venmo note. I am going to be very surprised. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I'm going to be very surprised if they can prove that this came from her phone. But then as soon as I thought that, I was like, well, no, because they could have forced her to type that, or they could have grabbed her phone from her and typed that and sent it. But then why send that amount of money? It's just so weird, the whole thing. Unless she knew she was in some situation and she was like, this is not going to end well. I'm going to Venmo my daughter this money so that she has it, so that whatever can take place. Who knows? We shall see. Again, I think it is very powerful that the police have made a statement of this was personal and targeted. And I do think that the word targeted means something, because to me, I feel like if you listen to, I don't know, this is my opinion right here, right? So all this is, right? Please don't misconstrue any of this with, absolute facts. This is just my thoughts. To me, when I hear personal and targeted, my initial thing goes to somebody who was pissed at her. I can see it being like, somebody who was, and this is an example. I had some kind of incident with this person and I came back 2 days later and I was still angry with them. I targeted them and it was personal. Now, again, that can mean the same thing if it comes from a family member and this, that, and the other. That's what makes it tricky. This almost reminds me of the Family Dollar situation. If you remember, or if you've watched Something's Wrong with Aunt Diane, where she goes into the gas station. I think we can all connect dots if you've watched that, what really ended up happening. But in the beginning, where it was like, when she walks in, she's acting normal. And I'm not trying to say that Debbie wasn't, blindly intoxicated or anything at all, but just the bizarreness of what happened, kind of a thing. So that's it. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Again, we'll start following this over here. I wanted to kind of just do a compilation of headlines, and so much has taken place in it. This is the quickest way to do it. So please let me know what you think down in the comment sections. If there's things you want me to check out about it, let me know. And that's it. And so until we meet back over here with all the computers and the sofas and the doggies and all that, I'll see y'all soon.